So right now you should be looking at a picture of the character Fashye Tiemsheom, one of the main characters of Vosha and Fashye through the Star Seas. She is a very powerful individual. She's young. She's the youngest member of the leadership that's guiding these people on a migration to another planet. She reached that position not necessarily because she's popular with the people. As a matter of fact, she's anything but popular with her people. She's a very controversial figure. A lot of her people, a lot of the show don't like the idea that she's a leader. As a younger person in her adolescence, she was actually ostracized from society for something that she did. She's did something very terrible, which cost a lot of people their lives. And she paid for that dearly by being declared unseen. This is, in effect, being declared as a pariah. And in a culture where life is worshipped and life is proven through sight, being declared unseen is basically having your living soul stripped from you. And so for years, Fashye lived in the streets of her home islands as persona non grata. She was absolutely considered filth. She was ostracized. She was kicked out. She was beaten whenever she tried to get into town to find food. She was cursed at, attacked, all the worst things that you could imagine. And it took years for her to finally find her way back to society and find her way back to the sight of the people. But there were those who didn't see her and who still held grudge against her for what happened. It's a very long story and one that will be recounted at a later date, but Fashye's childhood was not necessarily just tragic, it was traumatic. And if you look closely at the picture, some of those traumas are borne out on her face. Her left eye is disfigured slightly. And in the society where they can heal pretty much any wound and cure any disease unless it's truly exotic, that's a big deal. That tells you how vicious the beating was. Her mouth is a little crooked and scarred, and her chin bears a disfigured mark on the right side where she was hit. So she carries her scars with her, and she carries them openly. You know, this is her life, and she treats it as such. She doesn't hide anything anymore. But she does wonder about that. She wonders about her past, and does she deserve to be on the leadership? Does she deserve to go to this new world and make a better place for her people? It wears at her constantly. She is fiercely protective, though, of her people, and she is fiercely protective of her faith. She does not trust the other social group in this story, let's say the dominant social hierarchy in the galaxy. She always comes from the perspective that they have an angle to play, that they are trying to suppress or repress the show. And so she has become somewhat bigoted, actually. And this is something that almost every character in this novel has to contend with. And it's one of her big story arcs, is overcoming her bigotry, overcoming her inherent racism, to accept that not everybody is evil, and that the people that she has gauged to be evil are in fact victims, or are in fact put upon. And that's what marks her, I think, as one of my favorite characters, is that Fashye is aware of her faults. Fashye becomes aware of the issues that she's facing, and she becomes aware and willing to change that. When she identifies that she is wrong in something, she is quick to assess it. She's quick to assess her faults, and then she works to improve upon them. This is something she learned as a younger person. She never wants to go back to being unseen, and this insecurity has led to a very positive outcome, which is that she wants to become better. This improvement is always a good thing for her. When designing the character, Fashye actually came after Vosha. Vosha had a very particular, very short adventure. And as I was designing the background, I wanted something more. I needed a foil for him. And so I created another character. And then I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if we went more with the imagery of male-female? And so I turned that character into a woman. And then I came up with a name, Fashye, which I thought was a little too close to Vosha. So how can I make this sound alien? So I added ye at the end of it in the Japanese style, which, Ys don't have the I sound. They have always the ye sound. Tokyo is never Tokyo. Kyoto doesn't exist. You have Kyoto, so it's always ye. Fashye was designed to be not an antagonist, but the consciousness of Vosha as he went on his journey. And then she developed into something far richer. And she took on her own traits, and she became her own consciousness, and she took on a new aspect of that duality between her and Vosha. And in a way, she represents really something beyond what Vosha could. Vosha represents the society. He represents the structure. He represents everything that, let's say, stand for this uptight rigidness. And he's wearing this black frock coat, which means he's a very wealthy individual, while Fashye is wearing linen robes and shawls and this, cap that you see in this picture. She's become this image of openness, of thought, of spirituality, but also of strength, of free will. Because Vosha, the moment he's tasked with his task in the novel, which I won't spoil here in case you want to read it, Fashye is open, and she's able to navigate in ways that Vosha can never imagine, and that actually makes him quite jealous of her. Fashye is very observant. She always is seeing people and what they're doing and how they're reacting and how they're behaving, and this allows her to really understand when she needs to change her tactics in dealing with people. She's always upfront. She's always direct, but she knows when to be direct while seeming indirect. She knows how to navigate that very well, much to her friend's chagrin. So there's a lot to discuss on this character. She's very deep, and she's very, 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 very interesting to me to write, and she's one of my favorite ones because, as I said, she's direct, and so her emotions are right there on her sleeve, and she has I don't use human curse words in this because they would obviously have them, and I never imagined that they had an approximation for them. But Fashye is quite the potty mouth. She loves to curse, and she has a sailor's mouth that makes the actual sailors from her islands cry. So her favorite one is shareg, which translates to filth or trash or any number of really bad things. And she uses it freely. Again, something she picked up on the streets. So I'll have a lot more on this character as I begin to do this series and I get a better idea of what I'm really wanting to discuss here. These are the outlines and the profiles of the Unity Fall. So in the coming days, I will post more of this. I'll post more about Fashye and post more about Vosha. Expect his profile to be a little tighter than it is now. This is, again, a first time, just to give you an idea of what we'll be doing in the coming weeks. So thank you very much for listening, and I will talk to you soon.